She said she didn't plan it, but I can't stop wondering, did she really let it happen? The story begins on a quiet afternoon with the young man, 25, observant and quietly introspective, finding himself in a place he had visited countless times but never noticed the little details before. Perhaps a small, sunlit cafe tucked between buildings, or a gallery filled with soft classical music and the faint scent of old paper and paint. He's lost in thought, his mind replaying the routine of his life, when suddenly, she enters. She is a woman in her early 40s, effortlessly composed, radiating confidence. Yet there's a flicker of vulnerability in her gaze that immediately draws him in. He notices first the way she moves. Graceful, deliberate, unhurried, like she inhabits her own space in the world. Her presence commands attention without demanding it. She pauses at the counter or in front of a painting, and he can't help but notice the soft way she tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear. There's a scent, subtle and comforting, something like vanilla and fresh linen, that seems to linger in the air after she passes. He catches her glance for a brief moment, and her eyes, warm, intelligent, and quietly amused, meet his. The brush of recognition is electric, though fleeting. Their first interaction is almost accidental. Perhaps a book falls, and he instinctively bends to pick it up just as she reaches for it. Their hands brush, and it's brief, but long enough to register. The heat of her palm, the gentle firmness of her grip. He clears his throat, feeling a strange mix of embarrassment and exhilaration. She smiles, a small, knowing smile, and nods politely. It's a simple gesture, yet it feels like an invitation to notice her, to linger in her presence. He observes her closely without intending to. The tilt of her head as she reads, the way her fingers lightly trace the edge of the cup she holds, the slight furrow in her brow when something catches her attention. She radiates life experience, a quiet assurance that he's only beginning to grasp. And yet, there is something tender, almost fragile, in the way she carries herself, as if a chapter of her life has left traces of vulnerability that she doesn't fully hide. For him, there's an internal tug-of-war. He's aware of the age difference, the potential social judgment, and the uncertainty of what he's feeling, but the pull toward her is undeniable. His heart beats faster at small gestures. A shared laugh, a glance held a second too long, the accidental proximity as they navigate the same space. He feels a curious mix of admiration, desire, and respect, an emotional cocktail that leaves him both nervous and captivated. By the time they part ways, he with a slightly racing pulse, she with a subtle, lingering glance. There's a mutual recognition that something has shifted. It's a connection unspoken yet unmistakable, a seed of tension that promises depth, complexity, and the slow unraveling of emotions to come. The first spark has ignited, quiet but insistent, setting the stage for the subtle, intricate dance of attraction and hesitation that will define the rest of their story. Their second encounter is less accidental, though it carries the same quiet magic as the first. This time, the young man finds himself deliberately lingering in the same cafe or gallery, though he would never admit it aloud. Perhaps he convinces himself it's coincidence, but deep down, there's an unspoken hope of seeing her again. And there she is, as if the universe had decided they should meet once more. Her presence calm yet compelling, drawing him into her orbit without effort. Conversation begins naturally, almost imperceptibly at first. A comment about the weather, a shared interest in a painting, or a book becomes the bridge that connects them. He notices the way her eyes light up when she talks about something she loves, a subtle spark that makes him lean in slightly, as if proximity could help him catch more of her essence. She laughs softly, the sound gentle and unforced, and it feels like music to him. He finds himself matching her tone, mirroring her gestures without realizing it, as if some invisible rhythm has already begun to tie them together. They begin to share small personal stories, light anecdotes at first, peppered with humor. A tale about a clumsy moment at work, a family memory, or a favorite travel experience. She speaks with a casual ease, yet her pauses hint at deeper layers, a life shaped by choices, losses, and triumphs. He listens with intent, sensing the weight of experience behind her words. Occasionally, she catches him studying her and offers a soft, knowing smile, neither dismissive nor inviting outright. There is space for observation, for curiosity, for growing fascination. The physical world mirrors their emotional connection. Perhaps they reach for the same pastry or beverage, and their hands brush again, this time lingering a fraction longer than before. He notices the warmth of her skin, the subtle pressure of her fingers against his, and it sends a quiet shiver through him. She tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, and he feels compelled to glance at the curve of her jaw, the way sunlight catches in her hair. Small, almost insignificant gestures. Touching a coffee cup, adjusting her scarf. Take on a magnetic quality, each movement layered with unspoken tension. Internally, he grapples with the intensity of his feelings. The age difference looms in his mind, a cautious reminder to tread lightly, yet the pull toward her is undeniable. He admires her poise, her subtle confidence, and the vulnerability she does not fully hide. She, in turn, senses his attentiveness, the quiet way he values her words and presence, and it stirs something unexpected within her. Curiosity, warmth, perhaps a hint of longing she is reluctant to admit. By the end of their encounter, the emotional stakes have subtly shifted. There is laughter, shared understanding, and a sense of comfort that feels both new and profound. A lingering glance as they part, his hand brushing hers ever so slightly, her smile gentle but knowing, cements the sense that this is more than a chance meeting. The slow burn has begun in earnest, setting the stage for deeper emotional intimacy and the inevitable tension that comes with unspoken attraction. Why now? Their connection has settled into a delicate rhythm. The young man, 25, finds himself anticipating these encounters, not out of mere curiosity, but because there's something about her presence that stirs a profound awareness within him. She is in her early 40s, confident yet quietly vulnerable, and the juxtaposition fascinates him. It's a magnetism born of contrast. Her measured poise against his tentative energy, her life experience against his raw, emotional openness. Their third meeting occurs in a setting that allows for more intimacy, perhaps a quiet corner in the cafe, away from the murmur of other patrons, or a late afternoon stroll through a tree-lined park. Conversation naturally drifts beyond casual anecdotes. She begins to reveal fragments of her inner world, careful but candid. A recent disappointment lingers in her words, an abrupt ending to a long-term project, a subtle family conflict, or a quiet realization of personal loneliness. She does not spill everything, but enough to leave him leaning forward, intent on listening. He notices the minute ways she betrays her vulnerability, the slight tremor in her voice when she mentions a regret, the way her hands fold in her lap, restless but controlled, the brief hesitation before her words as if measuring how much to reveal. He listens, not just to her words, but to the spaces between them, sensing the unspoken emotions. When she glances away, lost in thought, he feels an almost protective urge, an impulse to offer comfort, to be a quiet anchor in the storm of her emotions. Their physical proximity grows more noticeable. Sitting side by side, she brushes past him occasionally. Perhaps her arm grazes his as she adjusts her seating, or her shoulder briefly presses against his as she leans in to emphasize a point. Each touch, however casual, sends small ripples of awareness through him. The warmth of her hand near his, the subtle rise and fall of her chest as she exhales, even the faint scent of her perfume. All of it heightens his attention, making every glance and gesture feel significant. Internally, he struggles with the intensity of his feelings. There is admiration and desire, yes, but also a profound respect for the boundaries she may or may not be ready to set. He senses that she is testing herself too, curious about his attentiveness, the care in his words, and the patience in his quiet presence. There is no rush, no overt advance, just a mutual recognition of a connection deeper than either expected. By the end of their meeting, the emotional tension is palpable but still unspoken. Their hands brush one last time as he passes her a napkin or reaches for the door, and they both linger in that fleeting contact. She offers a soft, almost shy smile, and he returns it with an intensity that carries unspoken questions and possibilities. There is no declaration, no overt confession of desire, yet both are acutely aware that something meaningful has begun to take root. This is the moment where the slow-burn romance truly starts to ignite. The emotional intimacy deepens, the unspoken tension grows, and the groundwork is laid for the pivotal moment of accidental yet charged closeness. The moment she will later call, "I didn't plan it." The atmosphere between them has shifted subtly but unmistakably. Their previous encounters have established trust and curiosity, and now, for the first time, their connection brushes up against something more intimate, a closeness that neither had fully anticipated. Perhaps they are in a quiet living room after sharing a casual coffee, or lingering after a gallery showing, the world around them fading into a soft blur. Time feels suspended, measured only by their breathing and the unspoken awareness of one another. It begins with something small and accidental, a hand brushing against the other's while reaching for a notebook, a shoulder bump as they adjust their seating, a fleeting touch to steady her as she shifts in her chair. The first touch carries a spark, a subtle recognition of mutual attraction, but neither acts impulsively. Instead, they pause, eyes meeting in a charged, silent acknowledgement. He notices her pulse quicken in the shallow rise and fall of her collarbone, the slight catch in her breath when their fingers graze. She notices the careful way he watches her, a mixture of curiosity, admiration, and restraint etched in his expression. As the moment stretches, words begin to falter. He opens his mouth to say something, perhaps a question, a joke, but the right words escape him, leaving only the weight of presence between them. She shifts closer, ostensibly for comfort or practicality, yet the proximity is intimate and neither moves away. His hand hesitates near hers, unsure whether to bridge the space. When their fingers finally touch, it is electric, warm, lingering just enough to convey more than conversation ever could. And then it happens. A gesture, a brush of hair from her face, a hand resting briefly against his chest, a soft laugh that leans into him, that crosses an invisible threshold. Neither planned it, neither anticipated it, yet the intimacy of the moment is undeniable. She steps back slightly, eyes wide, and says softly, almost defensively, "I didn't plan it." Her voice carries a mixture of surprise, embarrassment, and an unconscious admission of desire. He responds not with judgment or reprimand, but with quiet honesty. "But you let it happen." His words hang in the air, gentle but probing, acknowledging both the reality of the moment and the unspoken tension between them. For the first time, the boundary between friendship and something more feels blurred, charged with potential. Internally, both struggle to reconcile emotion and reason. He wrestles with the intensity of his attraction, the thrill of closeness, and the caution imposed by their age difference and life circumstances. She wrestles with her own surprise, the realization that she allowed herself to be drawn in, even if only briefly, and the complex emotions it awakens. The scene closes with a lingering, unspoken understanding. Neither crosses the line fully, yet the spark has been ignited, the slow-burn romance entering its most delicate and potent phase. A simple touch, a glance, and a few words have created a tension that promises emotional depth, longing, and the intricate dance of desire and hesitation that will define the rest of their story. The quiet intensity of the previous moment lingers like a soft echo, following them into their next meeting. The young man, still processing the brush of intimacy and her words, "I didn't plan it," feels a mixture of fascination, confusion, and a growing desire to understand her feelings. He wants clarity, not to chastise her, but to navigate the murky line between unintentional closeness and conscious choice. They meet in a neutral space this time, perhaps a quiet park bench bathed in late afternoon light, or a small cafe corner with soft jazz playing in the background. The air between them is taut with unspoken emotion, yet neither rushes to break the silence. He chooses his words carefully, his voice calm, reflective, yet carrying the weight of sincerity. "But you let it happen," he says again, not as accusation, but as an attempt to open a conversation that has been simmering beneath the surface. Her response is layered, quiet, and honest. She meets his gaze, a flicker of vulnerability passing through her eyes. I don't know, she admits softly, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her coffee cup or the hem of her scarf. It felt natural in the moment, and I didn't think, I just allowed it. Her words are carefully measured, but the honesty behind them resonates deeply. She is acknowledging the tension, the attraction, and the complexity of her emotions without diminishing the subtlety of the moment. As they speak, the physical space between them carries its own language. His hand rests briefly near hers, not pressing, not demanding, but offering a quiet presence. She leans forward slightly, a fraction closer than necessary, and he feels the warmth radiating from her as if proximity alone communicates what words cannot. Each gesture, a slight touch on the wrist, a shoulder brushing against his own, the way she tilts her head toward him when speaking, conveys intimacy without crossing boundaries. Internally, both wrestle with conflicting emotions. He grapples with admiration, desire, and protectiveness, tempered by respect and caution. He is acutely aware of her vulnerability, yet the honesty in her voice and eyes makes it impossible to suppress his feelings. She, on the other hand, contemplates the tension between curiosity, self-restraint, and the recognition of her own emotional openness. She is both exhilarated and hesitant, aware of the pull she feels toward him yet cautious of the implications. The conversation evolves into mutual reflection. They discuss boundaries, choices, and the meaning of the fleeting intimacy they shared. There is no judgment, only a deepening understanding of each other's inner worlds. Laughter punctuates the moments of vulnerability, softening the weight of emotional honesty. The air is filled with unspoken acknowledgement of connection, respect, and a growing bond that neither wants to rush nor diminish. By the end of their meeting, there is clarity without finality. They part with lingering glances and subtle gestures. A gentle brush of hands, a lingering smile, or a soft sigh that seems to carry the complexity of their feelings. The confrontation has not resolved all tension, but it has deepened trust, awareness, and intimacy. The slow-burn romance moves forward, more emotionally charged, more nuanced, and more resonant than before, preparing the stage for the quieter moments of realization and choice in the following parts. After their emotionally charged confrontation, there is a calm, almost fragile pause in their relationship. The spark has been ignited, but neither rushes to define it. Instead, they spend time together in quiet, everyday situations that allow their connection to deepen organically. Perhaps it's a casual coffee run, a shared walk through a neighborhood park, or browsing books in a small sunlit bookstore. These ordinary moments carry extraordinary weight, each glance, gesture, and word layered with the intimacy that has grown between them. The young man notices more than ever the subtle nuances of her presence. The way she tilts her head when listening, the slight arch of her brow when she's amused, the soft warmth of her hand brushing against his accidentally, or when she hands him a book or a cup. There is a rhythm to her movements, an unspoken grace, and he finds himself mesmerized by both her confidence and the quiet vulnerability that surfaces in fleeting moments. Her age, her experience, and her poise are no longer barriers. They are part of the allure, the depth that he admires and wants to understand. For her part, she begins to recognize the steadiness of his attention, the care with which he listens and observes without judgment. His gestures, small, deliberate, and respectful, signal that he is fully present, attuned to her emotions and boundaries. When he offers a hand to steady her on uneven pavement, or when their shoulders brush as they laugh at a shared joke, it is never casual. Each contact feels deliberate yet gentle, charged with an unspoken acknowledgement of their growing closeness. Their conversations, too, deepen. The humor and anecdotes of their first meetings give way to reflective discussions about life, aspirations, and fears. They share pieces of themselves that they have rarely voiced to others. Regrets, dreams, and quiet insecurities. He notices the way her eyes soften when she speaks about meaningful experiences, the slight tremor in her voice when discussing personal challenges, and he responds with quiet empathy, a steadying presence rather than a rush to fix or advise. She, in turn, appreciates the sincerity of his listening, the way he makes space for her without imposing his own narrative. In these moments, they begin to recognize the subtle shift in their feelings. There is no dramatic confession, no sudden declaration of desire, only a quiet acknowledgement through gestures, lingering glances, and shared silences. He may brush his hand against hers when passing an item, and instead of pulling away, she leaves it there for a heartbeat longer than necessary. When he laughs at her dry humor, she notices the way he studies her expression, as if memorizing the cadence of her smile. Internally, both are aware of the slow-burn attraction. He grapples with admiration, desire, and the responsibility of respecting her boundaries. She contemplates curiosity, comfort, and the thrill of allowing herself to lean into the connection. Neither pushes, neither hurries. The tension is present but restrained, simmering beneath the surface, allowing their bond to grow more layered and resilient. By the end of these quiet encounters, they have begun to understand each other on a profound level. Emotional intimacy has grown, subtle romantic tension has deepened, and the foundation is laid for the eventual resolution of their feelings. It is a chapter defined not by grand gestures, but by the gentle accumulation of trust, understanding, and the delicate recognition that something meaningful is taking root. Something worth savoring before it fully blooms. After the subtle tension, quiet revelations, and tender moments of connection, the story reaches its emotional climax. The young man, now fully attuned to both his feelings and hers, senses that the time has come for honest acknowledgement. Not through grand gestures, but through quiet clarity. They meet again in a familiar setting, a place that has quietly witnessed the evolution of their relationship. The cafe where they first met, a secluded corner in the gallery, or a quiet bench under the late afternoon sun. Everything around them feels softer, slower, as if the world itself has paused to allow this final moment of reckoning. The air is charged with anticipation, yet both approach it with emotional maturity. He studies her face carefully, the subtle lines of her smile, the glint of curiosity in her eyes, the slight tilt of her head that has become so familiar to him. He sees not only her beauty but the depth of her experiences, the grace with which she carries herself, and the quiet vulnerability she has shown only to him. She, in turn, observes him with an understanding born of shared moments, laughter, and confessions. She sees the sincerity in his eyes, the patience in his demeanor, and the quiet intensity of a heart that has grown to care deeply. They speak with honesty and softness, their words deliberate but unhurried. The young man expresses how deeply he values her presence, the way she has changed the way he sees the world, and the connection they have built. She responds with equal sincerity, acknowledging her own unexpected feelings, the surprise at how naturally he fits into her emotional space, and the warmth she feels when around him. There is no need for dramatics. Their bond has been nurtured quietly, steadily, and now it can be recognized openly. Physical gestures underscore the emotional resolution. Hands meet naturally, lingering just long enough to communicate comfort, desire, and trust. He may brush a strand of hair from her face, or she rests her hand lightly on his arm. Small, intimate actions that convey a depth of feeling without overstepping. Their eyes lock, conveying what words alone could never capture. Understanding, acceptance, and a shared acknowledgement of the journey they have traversed together. Internally, they each reflect on the slow-burn path that brought them here. He recognizes the wisdom in patience, the value of emotional attentiveness, and the thrill of experiencing love tempered by respect and understanding. She acknowledges the joy of letting someone in carefully, the strength of vulnerability, and the exhilaration of realizing that age and life experience do not constrain emotional connection. They enhance it. The ending can take a subtle yet satisfying shape, depending on the emotional arc chosen. Together and secure, they embrace fully, committing to explore their relationship with patience, care, and mutual respect. Together but uncertain, they hold hands, share a lingering smile, acknowledging mutual desire while leaving the future open. Emotional resolution without romance. They part with deep gratitude, cherishing the bond they've formed, even if it does not evolve romantically. Separation with lasting impact. They exchange a final, meaningful look, parting with the understanding that their connection has irrevocably shaped them. Regardless of the ending, the resolution is emotionally complete. The slow burn tension has fully unraveled. The subtle romantic desire is acknowledged, and the audience is left with a sense of warmth, closure, and the beauty of human connection. A story of patience, intimacy, and the quiet, transformative power of love.